Hi, my name's Stella Mead and I'm Head of Client Success at Sales for Startups. And the reason I'm talking to you today is to talk about churn. Um, my background, I started in a small edtech company. We grew very fast to start with, but then we started to plateau out in our growth. And one of the reasons for that was churn. There was a big change in the market. Perhaps we made some wrong product decisions. Perhaps we weren't good enough at account management. There's any number of reasons that churn can happen, and it's not always things that are completely in your control, but there's certainly things you can do about churn to make sure that you are aware of what's happening with your customer base. There's ways that you can strengthen those relationships, and it's relationships more than anything that will keep your customers with you in any sort of SaaS environment. Um, Churn impacts on growth. As I've mentioned, you put a lot of energy into sales, but if you're losing customers while you're gaining customers, your numbers aren't going to go up. Your predictable revenue isn't going to grow as you'd hoped, and it costs a lot more money to get a new customer than it does to keep an existing one happy a lot of the time. Um, so obviously there's that. There's the revenue. There's also your reputation. I think reputation isn't undervalued. I think in a small company, reputation's everything. You build really close relationships with people. You value your customers incredibly, they value you. What happens when you grow, and particularly if you grow quite fast, is that it becomes much harder to maintain those one-to-one personal relationships with your client base. Um, and that's the point where it's useful to start to think about some things that you can put in place, whether it just be simple reminders, a simple process of 30, 60, 90-day follow-ups, a structure of how you deal with renewals so that your only contact with a loyal client isn't the bill that they get quarterly, annually, or monthly from you. And if there's problems, I mean, this is probably the main thing that I learnt, although it was hard coming. If there's problems, um, deal with them head on. It's so hard, and this is the next thing I want to talk about: staff morale. If you're churning clients, it often means that people aren't happy. They've been sold something else that they perceive is better, or there's something that your product doesn't do. You might not feel that that's the case. It might not be the case, but whatever that perception is, it's something to have open and frank discussions about. On the whole, people are pretty decent and they want to talk to you. If they've bought your product, they're invested in it and they're invested in you. And I think that that's really, really key. And I think that when we were smaller, we tried to appease is the wrong word, but we wanted to give people what they wanted. It was a really big part of what we wanted to do. But if you want to do that, it's a great philosophy. It's a great way to run your product, but you need to manage it really well. And you need to manage that feedback well, and manage that loop back to your clients. That if the product's changing at all, or if there's developments that they want, they know when they're going to happen, and that if there's delays in that, you build the communications in the right way. And it sounds pretty obvious because it's something that we all know we should be doing in a SaaS environment, but it's incredibly hard when you're juggling so many other things. And that's just why this is a little reminder to say that, keeping an eye on your existing customer base is really sound commercial practice. A lot of people talk about customer success, and in a sales environment, they mean this is growing and selling extra products. And yeah, that's great. And it's great commercial planning, land and expand, all of these lovely terms. But actually, just keeping an eye on what it is that your customer wants, and making sure that they're happy, um, is probably one of the best commercial things you can do. And then your sales team can go and sell, and staff morale will be high because everyone will be confident that they're giving a good product and that people are happy and the customer base is happy. That staff morale goes up, people sell more easily, people on board happier. Those customers stay. It's just this spiral of positivity that can be quite easily undermined, if you're in that unfortunate situation where you may start to churn customers. Um, I worked in an industry where lots of our competitors and ourselves churned at a very similar time. We had a lot of upheaval in the market. We worked in education sector. As you know, that can change very, very quickly. There's winners and losers in that. I think us and a lot of our competitors felt like we were losers. It was a very difficult time to be in the industry, although very rewarding business to work in, ed tech. But yeah, if you can keep that communication open, keep it honest, keep it professional and friendly, try not to overpromise. And I suppose one of the absolute key things I learned over the years, sell to the right customers. There's a real feeling when you're small, or when you're struggling to grow, or when growth has stalled, that you want to get sales. And that's very, very understandable. People are relying on you for their income. People's jobs are based on your figures at the end of the day. You might be needing investment and needing to show profits or growth. Sell to the right customers. If you try to sell to anybody, the long-term damage that it can do to your bottom line is actually much, much bigger than being brave at that time and saying to that sale, "I'm sorry, but we're not for you," or "We're not for you yet." So that's probably my number one takeaway for today. Thanks for listening.